For many years now, people have been warning you about a global new world order, cashless track, trace, and database society where nothing is secret outside of government. And now we have government bureaucrats working towards that effort in very devious ways, especially now with the latest supposed coronavirus stimulus package. And yes, the government is claiming that they need to pass this law in order to get you your money, a temporary universal basic income. But what else is in the bill? For one instant, there was a plan to create a digital dollar. Yes, a digital dollar. Now, the bill is being negotiated right now. There's many stipulations being put on the table, taken off the table. We still don't know if this is still going to be in the bill or not in the making of this video. But by far, this is extremely worrying, which I will be discussing in full length with Tim Pashot. Me and him do a full show every day on the backup channel, Change the News channel. And this is big news. Also, on the heels of the U.S. government trying to end encryption, trying to make sure that they have the ability to scan every message online that they can. And again, this is no secret. Let's just be honest here. The current crisis that we're in, which is a serious, legitimate crisis, this is something that authoritarians, totalitarians, technocrats see as a wet dream in order to allow them to do whatever they want, to push for more power, more control over you, which they always so desperately seek in so many weird ways. Tim, what do you make of this digital dollar? And from the language that you see in there, what's the important information that people should take away from this?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. And I think the first important thing to remember is that what we're seeing here, I mean, it can't be understated that this has got to be one of the most important developments there possibly could be. And the reason I say that is I was very slow adopting Bitcoin because I was worried that this was going to be the mark of the beast. I had just read Creature from Jekyll Island when I found out about Bitcoin when it was about $1, and once I heard that on a blockchain that you can track every transaction, all my spidey senses were tingling and saying, well, hey, this could be a potential mark of the beast. And then once I started learning more and more, I started learning about different privacy coins and different, other, type aspects of crypto that are out there that are beneficial. But I've always had an eye on the fact that this can be used to completely enslave and control humanity, or it can be used to completely free humanity. And I think it's going digital no matter what. I mean, almost all the currency already is almost digital. And it's a very important distinction that currency and money are two different things. And what we call a dollar is technically currency and isn't technically money. But that's a whole, I mean, almost every word that we have today is, has been completely, devoid of what its original.
Yeah, if you look at the Federal Reserve is doing, it's literally just pressing 0000 on a computer screen and generating wealth and money. I mean, the whole system is a farce. The whole system is a Ponzi scheme. I mean, the Dow's up. We're going to be talking about that on the backup channel. I also want to bring up other efforts that are implemented by other governments, drones flying around, telling people to quarantine, apps being developed that police track you. I mean, this is China on overdrive on so many different levels. There's even Facebook giving, of course, they've been working with the government one-on-one. We're going to get into these articles in a little bit, but specifically with this new proposal, because right now, allegedly, the information that we're getting is that it's not in the bill right now, that it's been stripped, but it might be put back. This digital dollar, I mean, this has huge ramifications, and I don't think a lot of people know and are taking this as seriously as they should, right, Tim?
Absolutely. And the creator, you brought the Federal Reserve and talk about words that have no meaning. It's not federal. It's not reserving anything. And they've got something like the International Monetary Fund, which acts more like a bank. And then the World Bank acts more like a fund. Everything is just a completely upside down world. And so as we go into, we had mentioned we're not really sure exactly what this final bill will entail. But in the latest draft, the mentions of a digital dollar and a coronavirus-related relief bill before the U.S. House of Representatives has been scrubbed. So there's a 1,400-page bill. So, go figure, because you need 1,400 pages to, have all residents receive.
Yeah. And a lot of times they pass the bills without even reading it.
Yeah, what is it? It was famously, was it Nancy Pelosi? We need to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill, and it's sort of remnant of that. So, how much? And they keep, floating back all these 1,000-page bills and making amendments. And then who knows what's been changed, what hasn't been changed. And so this proposal is that each person will get $1,500, and but if you have an income greater than $75,000, you'd have to repay that back. And if you're married and you have income over $150,000, you'd have to pay that back. So the Nancy Pelosi version of the bill doesn't have the digital dollar in it. The Maxine Waters version of the bill does have it in there, and then it does appear that the Maxine Waters one, that's going to be stripped out as well. But going over, I guess, some of because this is an eventuality. They're floating this right now as a trial balloon. So maybe it gets shot down this time, but this is where things are going. And then also, I mean, I think another important point to bring up before we go back to that article is that the U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin appoints Coinbase chief legal officer to oversee the banking system. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, a longtime cryptocurrency and Bitcoin skeptic, has named Brian Brooks as one of the country's top banking regulators. Brooks will serve as the next chief operating officer and first deputy comptroller of the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency after stepping down from his role as the chief legal officer at Coinbase, the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the United States. Brooks' appointment to oversee the country's banking system may signal a changing tide at the U.S. Treasury, given Mnuchin's anti-crypto rhetoric and remarks made last year that he sees no need for the U.S. to launch a digital currency. Man, how quickly that's changed. Brooks is an outspoken proponent of making the United States a leader in digital currencies, specifically by launching a U.S. digital dollar. And, you know, this is something that a lot of central banks are trying to do. You have the Bank of International Settlements, which actually sits above the Federal Reserve. They've been having white paper after white paper after white paper about central bank digital currencies. And what I think the actual game plan was, and it's crazy because I know that you and Luke do a lot of different, your own walk and talks. And I decided to kind of do like my own little walk and talk in June. And on that walk and talk, it was the day before Facebook gave the Libra white paper. And what my speculation is that it was going to be modeled after something called the special drawing right. So the special drawing right is what the Bank of International Settlements use as a unit of account to move funds between other central banks, and essentially at a super high level. And I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but it's about 50% the U.S. dollar, maybe 20% euro, 10% yen, and you've got a few other smattering of smaller currencies. If you take a look at what the Libra was, that's what it is. And so this is all getting us into moving together to have a one world currency. And maybe you still have a dollar. Maybe if you're living in another country, you have that currency. If you're in Mexico, maybe you still have the peso, but then it all gets wrapped up into another system that sits above that. And then they're going to tie that together with social credit. And this is going to be the absolute nightmare, because once they have that, the technocratic elite are just going to have us completely checkmated, because if, you and I mean, we're, our social credit score is going to be so far in the basement. I mean, no one's even going to want to associate with us. So this is, super important. I mean, this is, I cannot overestimate how important news this is, because if they end up getting people wrapped into this, sucked into this, I mean, we are done. I mean, this is the final end game, and I can't emphasize that enough, Luke.
Yeah, the total control. And this is why, there's so much, bad information about cash. Stay away from cash. Cash is dirty. You're going to get sick by using cash. I mean, the reason why many authoritarians don't want you using cash is because they can't tax it, they can't regulate it, they can't look over it, they can't have it, they can't steal it from you at any moment and time. And this is, again, something that I've been talking about ever since the kind of the Bitcoin conversation started, is like, everything on the Bitcoin blockchain is fully transparent for everyone to see. It's not a privacy coin. It's not a coin where you can hide what you're doing. It's a coin where everything is public on the ledger. You could make a couple efforts. There's some other coins that are privacy coins, but if a government has the ability to know every little transaction that's going on, I mean, that is just immense universal power that shouldn't be allowed to anyone. That's godlike power. And this is why we've seen countries like Russia, countries like Venezuela push the initiative for kind of a crypto global currency, which of course this would be also run in a very similar way. We've seen Goldman Sachs, we've seen the Federal Reserve, talk about this issue very seriously. And now that we're in a crisis, they're kind of edging it towards, doesn't mean it's going to pass, doesn't mean it's going to be in the bill, but they're still kind of playing around with this idea. This is what they always do. 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. That's the game that we're being played with all throughout human history, of people who are trying to gain power and control over you. And the best way to resist it is, as I've been saying, yes, we're in a crisis. This virus should still be taken seriously. And the reason it should be is because if we're able to offset some of the effects of this, the government has less of an excuse to come in. There's less panic. There's less fear. There's less pain. There's less suffering. And because of that, we could be, more responsible for ourselves. Some people are not responsible at all. But again, this is, a crisis that, sadly, some people are taking advantage of. We got to call those people out. We're still taking it seriously. We've still been calling out from day one, but the threats are real. Especially, like everything that's happening right now, all the pandemonium, and the government is trying to pass the Earn It bill to protect children. I mean, how more obscure, how more in your face, how more blunt could you get with priorities? Your priority during this crisis, when people are suffering, hospitals are being flown with people. And then the government's main initiative is to pass a bill to scan every message online. And then now they're trying to introduce a digital dollar. And we've seen things in China. You've seen our reporting in China. We've been telling you exactly what's been happening here in the global context of them being the test trial for total control. We don't want to live in a society like China. China is absolutely insane. But sadly, this is slowly where we're creeping into, and we have to speak out against this. We have to push back against this in a nonviolent, peaceful way, because this is a situation that's very rare. We still have to take seriously, but we can't let logic get out of the door. And we're seeing a lot of crazy things. Cops using drones with night vision cameras, patrolling neighborhoods to make sure people stay at homes with microphones screaming at you. I mean, this is 1984. Poland also developed a smartphone application that forces coronavirus patients to regularly take selfies of themselves to prove that they're in isolation, or they'll get a visit from police. Now, again, everyone should be in quarantine. Everyone should, take your time constructively, but that's a whole different discussion. Facebook is also sending all of its information that they're getting from the Messenger app to health authorities, and Facebook essentially knows a lot of information about you, more than you probably know, and they could actually do predictive programming with the amount of data that they're getting from you personally. So it's important to be aware of these things. It's important to speak out against them. This is why we're doing what we're doing here on this independent media organization that is supported by you. I'm working with Tim Pashot on the backup channel. He's a financial planner. There's a lot of other news happening with the economy that we're going to be getting into on the backup channel. Make sure you go there. Make sure you check out Tim. He's doing his own thing. I'm doing my own thing. But Tim, thank you so much for joining me. Let's cover more crazy economic news on the backup channel. Really appreciate you working with me. Perfect time to team up with Tim, especially during these crazy, insane times, especially the economic times, which you're going to find out more on the backup channel. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on We Are Change.